is a leading integrator of payment solutions for the travel industry. We facilitate faster, safer payments for governments, for corporations, agencies, as well as suppliers. So without further delay, let's jump into it. Well, probably that's giving away too much now. So how many of you have rushed out of your house or your offices without your phone? Anyone? All right. It's not a very interactive crowd this morning. Anyway, so the first thing is that we're seeing that the future of payments will be increasingly mobile, right? So a picture of my dog, who does not like to be left behind as well. So a couple of weeks ago, I had the misfortune of actually leaving my phone at home, and I had to go through the entire day without a phone. And that made me realize, as mobile devices become ubiquitous in our personal lives, it's also become very indispensable in our professional lives as well. It starts by waking me up in the morning, getting me to appointments safely and punctually, hopefully, helping me to pay for that business lunch or that business coffee with my colleagues, doing my expenses, doing my product demonstrations for clients, planning my trips and paying for my trips, right? So in the last 4 to 5 years, there's been a shift in the travel patterns, the booking patterns of Asian travelers. So there's a clear shift in terms of Asian travelers preferring to be planning their travel on mobile devices. And once that trip has been booked, they're jumping onto an app such as WeChat or an Amazon app to start purchasing that suntan lotion, those surf shorts, or those new ski boots, right? And when they get to that destination, they're opening up an app and ordering themselves an Uber or a Grab, depending on which market you're in, to get from the airport to the hotel or to a client meeting. I do that a lot. And how do you access your rooms? You're downloading an app and opening the doors to your room with a tap of your phone. After a couple of ski runs on the ski slopes, you're paying for that hot chocolate by tapping your phone as well. So in 2017, Focusrite estimates that about 40% of all online travel transactions in Asia were conducted on a mobile device. This translates to approximately $85 billion in sales via the mobile channel. Another insight you can take away from this is that Asia is clearly leading, as you can see in that yellow column. It's clearly leading in terms of mobile adoption when it comes to travel bookings for mobile, and it's rising really quickly. So within a span of 2 years, mobile adoption in Asia has gone from 20% in 2015 to about 40% in 2017. All right. Okay, so let me ask you a trick question. Who thinks that the Asian travelers, I think I already given away the answer. So who thinks the Asian travelers who book on mobile are budget travelers? Anyone? Okay. So if you're thinking that, so I'll share a couple of statistics with you. In 2018, Statista did a study, and it shows that 70% of Asian travelers who book on the mobile channel are from mid to high income classes. Okay? And while they spend 7% less time per shopping session, they're 88% more prone to click on the buy button. Okay? And 67% of these transactions are transacted using a credit card. I'm not going to give this away. So anyone knows, take a guess. What's the average transaction value of a mobile booking? Anyone? There's no wrong answers. $2,000? Wow. I'll speak to you after this. It's about $800 Sing dollars. So that's pretty significant. So which kind of shows that you're not booking your one-star hotels, you're not booking your LCC airfares, using your mobile devices. It's really great to talk about all these great stats. E-commerce has really grown in the last 10 years. Online travel has really grown, but payment security has had a hard time keeping pace with that change, right? So, which has resulted in a lot of, regardless of whether it's travel or your health apps or for example, healthcare industries, we're seeing that as businesses move into the online space, they're not protecting themselves as well as their customers as well as they should. which has resulted in massive and frequent data breaches as well as payment breaches as well. Two things that agency owners and GMs, such as my panelists will share with you later on, is that two things that they commonly share across the region is that, one, corporate travelers are increasingly hesitant to share their payment data with their TMC, as well as to pass it on to third and fourth party providers. Second thing that they share with me is that, on average, an agency card is replaced every 12 to 18 months. When you look at your own personal cards, your cards are typically issued for a period of 5 years these days. And when you think that a card has to be replaced every 12 months, that's a pretty concerning frequency of change. So what does this impact? It's impacted about 16.7 million cardholders in 2016 who have been victims of identity theft. Businesses have lost $21 billion from fraud, and $3.5 billion of that has been due to fraud in the online channels. Leads us to point number 2. Future of payments needs to be more secure. All right? So consumers, corporations are now looking for safer payment methods that they can secure, they can control, integrate into the payment path as much as possible without human touching that at all. So I do meet with a lot of Asian businesses in this region, especially travel businesses. One thing I do picked up is that a lot of Asian managers or business owners tend to look at security and payment security in particular as an unnecessary cost to doing business. And I always challenge them and ask them this question. So what is the opportunity cost of not securing your payment processes? Okay? If this statistic is true, 46% of global consumers would switch brand or change who they do business with after a security breach incident, right? So I'll ask you, can your business handle a drop of 46% in sales overnight after a security incident? Can you? If you can, then I'll keep my mouth shut. But even if this was just 10% of customers would switch brands, is that something that you can handle? So why not convert or change your thinking where security is a cost of business and turn that into a competitive advantage to help you win business and retain more business? All right, this is a trick question again. What's the correlation between weight loss and brand trust? All right, so as I get older, I'm realizing that it takes me twice as much work to lose weight, right? But it's really easy to lose your brand trust of your customers overnight, okay? So companies these days like to stay away from publicity. Some publicity are, not all publicity is good publicity. So I've sort of masked out the names of the companies here, but they're essentially just kind of cut and paste out of newspapers. These are actual companies that have been found to have facilitated commercial bribery through their travel and entertainment programs. Okay? So apart from payment security, companies are also realizing by automating and digitizing travel payments, they're gaining an extra benefit. It's protecting their brand value, right? And that's because they're able to bring transparency into the processes, into the organization, and maintain that trust of the customers. So beyond these millions of dollars of fines that's payable to authorities, now all these companies actually have to spend a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of investment over a long period of time to rebuild that trust with the customers as well as with the suppliers now. So the future of travel payments, number 3, is going to be increasingly invisible. As a result of all the breaches and all the data security and all the customer demand for safer payments, banks are now looking and adopting more invisible payments. A study shows, I believe this study was done by CPI. So by 2020, it's estimated that there will be 120 banks globally that will issue virtual payments to consumer or corporate cards. And, hold on a second. And just kind of share with you, I've started with Conferma about 2 years now. So when I started, the company was facilitating while powering virtual payments with about 30 bank partners. 2 years later, we now are working with about 35 banking partners globally, and there's also now a or I'd say a really healthy pipeline of banks coming on board in the next 6 months, every 6 months or so. So travelers are going to be increasing. See, how many millennials here? Anyone born in 1980 and after? I see quite a few, right? So you guys are millennials, right? I'm 80s too, so no. So, travelers, especially the millennials, will be increasingly carrying less plastic and more invisible payments, right? Be it Android Pay, Apple Pay, WeChat Pay, or Conferma Pay, right? And these travelers are going to expect that if you as a supplier want to do business with them, you will need to support those invisible forms of payment that they're most comfortable with, right? So I think this kind of says it all. So invisible payments are already with us today. It's not rampant, right? But there are suppliers in the industry that's already doing invisible payments. Whether it's whether you're buying a cup of coffee for business or for your personal needs, we're basically going to a Starbucks, order, tap, and we're gone, right? Or we're ordering an Uber, we get in, we get out, and within minutes, you've got a receipt in your email inbox. You never had to fumble for your wallet, no cash, and no cards. Lastly, the future of travel payments will be connected, or has to be connected. All right, I'll ask this question to you. I'm not sure if our Alibaba speaker is still with us, so I have to thank him for setting it up really well for me. So can anyone tell what's any commonalities that you see among all these companies on screen right now? They're online. Sharing economy, cool. Very close. So each of them deliver a very unique, frictionless user experience. That's number 2. Payment is embedded, and that payment experience powers that very unique experience at the same time. Number 3, each is a platform. He talked about it just now. He spent 30 minutes talking about it. Each is a platform that is an ecosystem that nurtures that ecosystem, and that continues to grow. Number 4, he also talked about this. Every company here mines data continuously to develop new entries into adjacent areas of opportunity for their businesses. So why are Apple, iTunes, or WeChat so successful in their own right? All you need to do is just take a look at the WeChat app, and you'll see a thriving ecosystem that's constantly evolving. Right? And when it comes time to transact, that payment experience happens invisibly. Right? And you've got different apps for different needs. As a user, you can just tap on any day, any time of the day. It's got different apps to actually help you facilitate those needs throughout your day. So the future of travel payments has to be embedded to power a very unique, frictionless experience, and it needs to connect your business to a larger ecosystem to be successful. So lastly, I will leave this with you. Just think about it. The confluence of mobility in payments and travel will sow the seeds for disruption for tomorrow. And this will result in new opportunities and threats for suppliers, intermediaries, and service providers to connect, engage, and transact with their customers. I'll leave that with you, and I'm going to ask Eugene to come up to join us. So Eugene's the GM for Corporate Travel Management in Singapore, and Anhui, Director of Sales for Asia Pacific from NTT. So let me whip out my phone and my questions. So hopefully that was really our side of things, and wanted to invite these two gentlemen up because Eugene, he's using cards, he's issuing the cards to pay his suppliers, and NTT is helping travel merchants to facilitate and settle those transactions safely. So I wanted to give you a balanced view of the entire value chain. So let's get started. So Eugene, in your business, because you're a travel management company, what are 3 common challenges in the last few years that you see your clients are trying to solve for?
I think first of all, I just want to talk about the trend itself. So it's very interesting. I was sitting here looking at a few segments on it. It talk about frictionless payment, to talk about super apps with a lot of services available to sell. So as a TMC, what we are seeing is that a lot of all this consumer experience, all the innovations and the technologies that's coming from the consumer side is slowly and surely going into the business travel side. Because at the end of the day, we do see a lot of characteristics between a leisure travels and a business travel. At the end of days, we want to talk about security. At the end of the day, I want to have a pain-free travel itself. And more so for a business traveler, because at the end of the day, when I go to a particular destinations, right, I have meetings to go on and all the stuff. So I want a fast-free, I want a trouble-free kind of travel experience so that I can focus on my business objective. So that's point 1. And for TMC's company itself, we deal a lot with, especially when we are doing the bookings of the travel products and all those things, we use a lot of our technology partner like the GDS itself. So I think the GDS is also catching on the trend itself. They are actually building a lot of the innovations and all of the technologies, right, that these companies that's catering to the consumers, and that actually allow us, right, to kind of address some of the challenges that our corporates are facing, things like the insufficient of data. Just now, Alibaba Group was talking about, they are able to continuously mining the data, getting the understanding of their consumers, getting the understanding of the clients, or the consumers of their clients itself. So these are the data at this moment of time. A lot of the pieces is missing, in particular for our corporates when they're running the travel program itself. So I think as we go along and like what Desmond has aptly presented, as we go along and we see a lot more disruption in the business travel space, I think our clients will be excited to see a lot of this consumer-based application, consumer-based technology were going into the business travels, and to a certain extent, it makes it such seamless that there's no difference between the leisure travels and the business travel.
Great, cool. And Anhui, in your line of business where you guys are helping travel merchants capture those transactions, what are some of the trends that you guys are seeing?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think just talking to the travel merchants, one of the big things that I've noticed is that I think a lot of those who are not already online want to be online. And those who are already online wants to do better. They want to optimize their operations. And one of the things that I think it's very important and it's a good sign is that many of these companies are looking at payments as an integral part of the whole solution, because payments really affects customer experience and it helps to acquire new customers for them. So payments are now being looked upon when they look at how to improve their services. It used to be the last thing that they look at, but now it is very important. It is almost the first thing they need to look at. And because of that, there's a lot of other challenges because payments can become friction, can be full of friction if you don't implement it correctly. So things, for example, like what Desmond mentioned correctly about security, about the trend moving towards mobility. Some of the challenges is how do you then incorporate all these things, which is the requirement of the consumers, and make it as frictionless as possible. And also the other thing about payments is that there's a recognition that because the payment data would become a very important part of the big data would help you in terms of your marketing, would give you that competitive advantage. You are able to collect a lot of this if you implement correctly your payment solutions. And so for those who are already doing payments, who are fully online right now, the next challenge would be, of course, how to optimize that cost And we're seeing, we're talking about different options in which they could, for example, localization of their payment and also expanding into different payment methods.
Thanks, Anwi. So let's touch on some of the solutions that you guys are providing to your customers. Eugene, you talked about customers wanting more technology, more mobility. They want their travelers to be able to get in, get out, and not even think about that. And pretty much very similar to what Alibaba just kind of talked about earlier, where you check in, you check out, and the bill is paid. Is that what you're seeing, and how is it? How is CTM helping your clients to achieve that?
Just to go back, one step, talking about the challenges itself, because at this moment of time in the business travel space itself, right, we do use a lot of different point of sales entry channels, right, to actually help our clients to fulfill their travel program or help the travelers to do their traveling itself. So at this moment of time, we do not have a consolidating platform, okay, whereby we can get a more seamless flow of the booking, from the quotation space all the way down to the post travel itself. In other words, where I'm coming from is that the data that we are providing to our corporates in order for them to more efficiently run their travel program itself, okay, the data is fragmented. Okay, I mean, in the case of what Chu was saying about the consolidating of the using the payment as the underlying platform itself, right? That portions of it, right, is one of the challenges that we are facing. And if we actually get this part out, it is a very good value proposition to all the corporates itself, because for the first time, they will have very, very rich data with regard to the traveling behavior, the actual traveling behavior, of their travelers itself, of their corporate travelers itself. At this moment of time, we are just, focusing on, specific data, which is whether it is just the air piece of the data itself, whether it is a hotel piece of data itself. Throughout the trips, right, what else, of the auxiliaries services, right, that the travelers need, in order to complete their business trip, those data are missing.
So are you using payment as a solution to help your clients consolidate the spend, as well as to start capturing that data, which then feeds their supply optimization contracts as well? And how are you doing that and using payments?
So, for instance, we have a few clients, right, whereby we implemented a platform from the GDS itself, whereby most of the transactions is going through the virtual cards channel itself. So in this case, right, all their travel products, right, for the whole business trips, right, is actually done on the virtual cards using that particular platform itself. Of course, Conferma being one of the centerpiece of it. That's where we are able to cut down the communication time when we are doing the travel bookings, right, between us and the suppliers itself. At the same time, I do have a consolidated chain of data. Okay, so for the first time, our clients, especially the travel managers, especially the department heads, right, for the first time is able to see their team when they are traveling, not just what are the carriers that they prefer, okay, not just what are the hotels that they prefer. At the same time, what are the other services that they need? Like, for example, probably every time they do a business lunch, you're actually going to a particular restaurant. And these particular restaurants, we have already established the virtual payments between the restaurants and the platform that we are using. And this data I can actually provide to our travel managers. And can you imagine if the travel managers can see that there's a very material volume that they are doing with this particular F&B outlets, they can actually go there to do negotiations and get the cost down further. Okay, so these are the missing data that at this moment of time we are not getting. Okay, and this will also give the travel managers, right, a better idea, right, how do they able to make their travelers' business travel trips, right, more seamless as possible.
Thank you. And Anwi, how are you guys solving the merchants or the travel merchants' challenges from an online, from a conversion standpoint, as well as from a margin standpoint?
Yeah, I think some of those, the usage of virtual cards and all that, I think there's a lot of benefits in terms of data, in terms of experience. I think it is good, but I think that in the end, when it comes to implementing that, during the right solution of payments, it actually gives a lot of challenges, a lot of questions from, I guess, different departments or different heads of the companies. For example, the CFO would be very interested to know, costs, how much it's going to be costing, and if I were to do reconciliation, is it going to be a nightmare for me? The sales department want to know how much more sales, how can this bring more sales to them? And of course, the IT would be, is it going to be very complicated? Do I need to do more job because I need to now have a new system? And that's where, we as entity data, together with Conferma and also with the different players in the ecosystem, we seek to improve that. We seek to give an automated and a secure solution so that it is able to meet all these requirements. And then it's also, I think this requirement about receiving or accepting virtual card is becoming a lot more as part of requirements from merchants that we see. I think 3 years ago, probably this requirement is not there, but I've been seeing a lot more questions around virtual cards because in this region it's still very, at least on the acceptance portion, at least on the payments portion, it hasn't been really fully understood by many of the merchants. And we get a lot of these questions, and that's where we see that by being able to solve this acceptance piece, I think the whole ecosystem in the case of optimizing payments in terms of using payments as sort of the weapon, the ammunition for you to get more sales, and streamlining your operations is very, very key.
Thank you. So I think we're running out of time. So in respect of the next speaker, if you guys have any questions, please come and speak to us. All right, thank you very much. Thanks for your time.